well. Take it away, boys.
Thanks, Maria, and welcome back to the booth here at the new Capenna Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon, and we're setting up for round number 3 here. As we just looked over at the news desk there, Paul, we've got David Inglis sitting down against Shota Yasooka. Both of these players eyeballing that world championship seat. There's a long way to go for these players, but they're still in contention very much near the top of the standings for where they need to be there. And we'll be keeping an eye on that, of course, as we work our way through both today, tomorrow, and even potentially Sunday as well. Matchups wise, where do you come in on this matchup here? This is Jeskai Storm versus Jund Midrange, but it's a little bit of a twist on Jund Midrange here from Shota.
Yeah, and both decks are slightly different than the ones that you're used to seeing. The particular version of Jeskai Storm that David Inglis's team has brought has a little more interaction, a little more removal than you typically see. And also Shota's deck. It's a very different deck than the other Jund Midrange decks. It's got a potentially more explosive start because you're playing Black Market Tycoon, right? That's a 2-mana 2/2. It's going to pump out a treasure every turn. However, it also has Jinnie Fay. So if you go turn 2 Black Market Tycoon into turn 3 Jinnie Fay, that is a lot of pressure that David Inglis is going to need to deal with while also trying to put together the pieces of his combo.
That's right. You know, Shota often will take lists that have the same name as other people in the tournament, but then play a bunch of different cards. And that's the case here as well. Their show of confidence off the top of the library here for David. Perhaps not the moment where he'd like to see that card. He's got Fading Hope, Fable, Goldspan Dragon, and now that show to go with an additional land.
Yeah, and I do also want to mention that David Inglis is on a mulligan to 5 here. Oof. He's casting a Fading Hope here for some tempo, needs to find land number 3 here to run out that Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but he is really working with limited resources.
As are you. Right now, we see the Black Market Tycoon get bounced right back to hand here from David as he's just doing anything he can to keep the early ramp at bay. So far, that did work. All Shota does is play a land and play his 2-drop again. Here's Fable of the Mirror Breaker now for David. And boy, he's going to need to find some action with that next turn on Chapter 2.
Shota probably doesn't want to give David the opportunity to make a treasure here, get him one step closer to running out that Goldspan Dragon. He's also aware that David is down to 5 in this matchup.
That's right.
Is that a Ziatora?
That is. That's Ziatora in hand. He's going to play Gala Greeters here. He's got a pair of those kind of at the ready. He also has a Workshop War Chief in his hand to go with the Ziatora. He's going to play both Greeters this turn, so those have the potential to do some very powerful things coming up. They have Alliance whenever another creature enters the battlefield under Shota's control. He can choose from putting a +1/+1 counter on the Greeters, make a tapped treasure token, meaning that you can't use it right away, or he can gain 2 life. So he can really either build out a powerful presence with these Gala Greeters, or he can start to add to his mana count and try to get Ziatora on the battlefield in the next couple turns.
Yeah, and this is rough here for David. Definitely want to toss away that show of confidence. Wants the land. I guess probably deciding whether or not he wants the second copy of Fable of the Mirror Breaker here.
He's just going to discard the show of confidence. He finds Expressive Iteration, though. He's not dead. He's hit 20. Yeah, he's facing down some amount of power here on the other side, but...
Yeah, Shota without the Jinnie Fay, just not a ton of pressure. Next turn, he can run out that Workshop War Chief. Make a treasure here off the Black Market Tycoon. We'll give him access to 5 mana. Ideally, want land number 6, so you can run out the Ziatora there instead. Excuse me, land number 4 for 6 mana.
Yeah, Shota certainly has some life total to play with regards to the Black Market Tycoon. Okay. Tycoons take a little tax here for having that treasure still in the bin. Ooh, there's a Chariot off the top as well.
That is interesting.
Yeah, especially with the Greeters.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get a lot of triggers here.
And I am curious to see if Shota wants to put pedal to metal or if he'd like to try to set up for the following turn. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of action here.
Yeah, I imagine we're going to see some counters and some treasures. Want to make sure you can get that 6 mana source to run out the Zeotora.
So he split the difference here. He went 2 treasures and 2 counters.
Right. He just wanted to make sure that he had the mana to play Zeotora next turn, and then decided doesn't want more just so you can get this good attacking. Because at the end of the day, you still need to pressure David Inglis's life total here. You know, if this game goes long, I mean, David, if you do find that Goldspan Dragon with a couple of treasure, you can have some really explosive turns with this deck.
Yeah, good pressure there from Shota. Also encourages David to trade off, leaving him with no board state creatures-wise. Reflection of Kiki-Jiki is going to be the only creature here.
And David really wants land number 5. The question is, does he want to discard 1 or 2 of the cards in his hand to find that land?
Awkward. He finds Spikefield Hazard, so he's going to go for Expressive Iteration.
Okay. So this does give him kind of that 1-2 punch here of having access to Goldspan plus the Leer. The Spikefield Hazard also is a way to generate 1 additional mana, right? If you target your own Goldspan Dragon with Spikefield Hazard, that basically acts as kind of a Lotus Petal effect, right? You spend 1 mana, you get 2. With Leer in play, you get to do that twice. That being said, you know, still want something like that show of confidence to really generate a ton of mana, or one of your big 4 mana rummage effects.
If you're sitting in David's seat here, Paul, are you thinking about combo finishes only? But you know, before your life total's 0, are there any? Can he do anything in between?
Yeah, I mean, this deck is certainly capable of winning games just by playing, hey, look, Goldspan Dragon control, right? I have some removal spells, I have some bounce spells, but at least in this situation where there's a lot of pressure on David, might not be able to get it done by going with that strategy. I think he probably does want to try to find that combo. Now, Shota is down to 14, right? That Black Market Tycoon has done a lot of damage. If you can get a Goldspan Dragon, maybe copy it with the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki, you might be able to sneak some stuff through. However, with the Zeotora in play, now we're looking at Fading Hope. Fading Hope would be fantastic.
Start incinerating here as well. Zeotora is going to trigger the Greeters. That's actually life total there for Shota. You mentioned that just a second ago, and Shota recognizing it as well. He's going to sacrifice a cat. That'll take out the Reflection and garner him 3 treasure tokens. That Black Market Tycoon could get expensive. He, of course, could just sacrifice them. Reflection of Kiki-Jiki is replaced on the battlefield, but again, with a Summoning Sick 1, he finds Galvanic Iteration with his draw step.
Yeah, I mean, with the mulligan to 5, I don't think David has enough here. You know, we're looking at a lethal attack next turn here from Shota. David can run out a Goldspan Dragon, but then what? Right? You don't have the mana to cast Spikefield Hazard. You know, ideally, the start for this type of deck is turn 4, big score, right? Unexpected windfall into Goldspan Dragon. I've won plenty of games where I just kill people on turn 4 just by casting the Rummage spell into the Dragon. But again, David just too far behind on resources here. This Goldspan Dragon won't be enough, and potentially might have to just chump block the Zeotora here.
Going to play the land and pass the turn back. This will allow him to survive potentially, but short-lived.
Shota is going to take a pile of damage here, unless he sacrifices his treasures.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. It's got some drawbacks.
Yeah, he just takes the 6.
6 ball. But I think we're going to see a Blitzed Workshop Warchief here.
That's exactly what we're going to see. Wow.
This is a lot of... I don't see David surviving this attack here.
No, Chump takes 7, and then he just needs to sacrifice the Greeters to Zeotora, and that's game. All right, so that is game number 1 going to Shota Yasooka. I have to say, though, that a lot of the story of that game was David mulliganing to 5, right? That happened straight away, and you can see combo decks particularly do have a difficult time when they don't have quite enough material just to get to what they need. Yeah, sometimes they can draw just the 2 or 3 cards perfect, and then they look, you look like a genius. But a lot of the time, they do need the support cards to get them to their combo pieces, and David didn't have any of that going.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at kind of how that game played out, I mean, Shota didn't draw a removal spell, right? So if David did have the ability to kind of run out that Goldspan Dragon, there was nothing Shota that he could have done to kind of prevent that from happening, right? Now after sideboard, it's of course going to get much more difficult here for the Jeskai deck. However, the nice thing is, oftentimes you can just play a controlling strategy. If you feel like your opponent's going to bring in enough ways to disrupt your combo, well, guess what? You still have a bunch of card draw effects. You have some removal, right? You can sideboard in cards like the All-Seeing Arbiter. You have access to burn down the house. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and that's what also makes sideboarding against this deck very difficult.
I like that Riveteer's Charm that Shota has. He's actually got 2 copies of it.
Yeah.
Looks very good here. I don't think there's any answer here for David.
So typically the way that this deck protects its creatures is with cards like Sojiri Shelter, sometimes a March of Swirling Mist. But specifically talking about cards like Sojiri Shelter, it doesn't work against Riveteer's Charm, right? Riveteer's Charm is a sacrifice effect, so it's a very, very great answer to the dragon. So Shota, with a good number of removal spells in his main that already dealt with the dragon, likely going to have more options in his sideboard as well.
All right, let's get started here. It looks like Shota's the one on a mulligan this time. He's also on the draw. There's big score and unexpected windfall in hand here for David. He's just got all of it.
Yeah, Story Disruption is going to be very nice here.
Definitely. Shota could try for Unlicensed Hearse or Tenacious
Underdog. Play around it.
Or do nothing. Shota absolutely aware of Jwari Disruption. Perhaps feeling out the least important of these two. The Underdog going to your graveyard is not exactly the end of the world.
Right.
But there's Shota Yasooka, everybody.
Shota.
Just plays around it, has 2 2-drops to play with nothing else to do, and says, you know what? I'll let you go.
If there's anybody who knows what the opposing Izzet deck's going to have, it's Shota Yasooka. Right?
Definitely.
He's known to be the person who plays all the control decks. He went undefeated with an Izzet Mill deck, right, at the last championship. So he knows his way around what the possibilities David may have, knowing that there's no real other hard counters that David plays. So he goes, you know what? I'm just going to save my threats and play around this disruption and just run out my 2-drops on turn 3.
Yeah, as it turned out, he got, I guess you'd say lucky, I don't know, but he drew Fable of the Mirror Breaker on his turn and said, okay, fine, well, that's the most powerful thing I can do this turn, and the shields are down, so I'm just going to do it. Ooh, 2 cards hitting the bin, and a little unfortunate there for David. He finds another copy of Lear, but also another Fable.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing for David is he does have the ability to attack here. That gives him the treasure, so he can play out a big score here if he wants.
It's got to be tempting.
Or just run out another Fable, right?
Right. Yeah, he's going to do that and play the Jwari Disruption as a land. That's smart. Pass the turn back over to Yasooka, who now gets to sculpt his hand. And look at this. He gets to discard the Tenacious Underdog in a land. So really nice here for Shota. And he finds another land and a Chariot.
Yeah, because Shota, it was going to be kind of awkward. He might have had to think about potentially using Infernal Grasp to deal with these pesky 2/2s, right? But the Yasooka's Chariot is just such a cleaner way to be able to kind of put creatures in front of these 2/2s to prevent David from just generating a huge mana advantage, right? Because those treasures with David's deck oftentimes gonna make 2 mana, right? If you can find that Goldspan Dragon.
That's right, and that's that usually is the point where they can kind of run away with it. They're 1 card draw spell away from kind of turboing through their library. Fable the Mirror Breaker, chapter 2 on the stack here. It seems that Lear would be an obvious discard. The others are less obvious. It looks like it's going to be big score though, so he's going to lean on Expressive Iteration, and he's actually found another copy as well.
Yeah, definitely wants to keep that Voltage Surge as a way to kill the Yasooka's Chariot that's in play. can kind of look to play a more controlling game here with the iterations.
Here comes expressive iteration number 1. Ooh, there's the name.
That's what the doctor ordered.
That's the one. Goldspan Dragon and a land. So put the dragon in hand and then choose which land you'd like.
Not playing against land destruction this time, so don't need to hide. Don't need to hide your basic lands.
How did we not get that match, Paul? I was watching Kenji Samura just gleefully blowing up all of his opponents' mana. We would have been rolling.
We were so jealous.
Yeah.
We were so jealous.
Alien Corey just had a great time covering it, too. You could tell. All right, both Goblin Shamans are going to hit the red zone here. That's going to create 2 treasure tokens and encourage Shota to trade cats for Shamans.
Yeah, not a bad trade here for Shota.
Yeah, you have to wonder now, you know, is the damage done, right? I mean, David's going to get such a huge mana bump off of those that it may have been too late.
Yeah, I mean, next turn we're looking at, you know, David can run out Goldspan Dragon and still have access to 7 mana.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Right, and again, keep in mind...
and you'll have Reflection up, too.
You have the Reflection up to copy the Goldspan.
It looks like he's going to go for the thing you don't see that often, which is a double expressive iteration turn.
Yeah, just wants to continue developing his board. Maybe try to look for a Rummage spell. But now he will be able to use the Voltage Surge here. Get this 2/2 off the battlefield. Still has access to a Voltage Surge to kill Chariot if he really needs to.
Mm-hmm. But with no tokens left over,
right?
Not only is the Chariot harder to crew, but also just isn't quite as potent. But Shota has the Duress in hand now, and he's going to put that on the stack and see what David's up to.
Yeah, I mean,
couple of choices.
You can take the Surge, but again, you can't crew up the Chariot here.
Yeah, so he's just going to actually Voltage Surge in response and force Shota to take Cinderclasm, it looks like.
Then Shota now has the option of either running out the Hearse, start eating up cards in the graveyard, or getting this Tenacious Underdog in play.
Yeah, the Hearse is interesting here because there's actually quite a few cards in the graveyard here for David. So Shota has to be very picky about what he takes out. If Lear hits the battlefield, Shota has to hit stuff that's relevant to Lear that turn. And then probably after that, he'll be fine, you know, to have taken out 4 cards or whatever.
Yeah, tough spot here for David now. Not a bad situation to be in, right? There's just so many cards in David's graveyard where if he does decide to run out Lear at some point, he's going to be able to get some value out of it. Right now, it's just a matter of deciding kind of which threat to run out this turn. You don't have any ways to protect your creatures right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you want to go for Lear, you have to start looking at, like, what's my 3rd and 4th best cards right now that matter.
Right.
Because I can cast them now, and that's the one window I'll have to do so. So, like, if we assume, say, the expressive iterations are pretty tempting, right? Let's say those get eaten up by the Hearse. What's left, right? These are the types of things that David has to work through. So
the big thing there, if you take a look at David Inglis's graveyard, he's got 4 card draw spells. So he's got the Windfall, the Big Score, and the 2 iterations. So might see Shota just target those, just so David can't get a ton of value if he ever does find a Lear and play it. Of course, Shota knows about the Lear because of the Duress.
Right. It's tough because he actually can't cast the 4 mana ones, right?
Right. So I mean, David does probably need to run something out this turn. You have that Hearse that's in play. Oh, never mind. He's gonna choose to play it a bit more patient here.
Both of these players know what's going on. Both of them have shown great restraint at given points in this game. Here comes the Hearse. That's actually going to take out the 2 more expensive card draw spells now, the higher impact stuff.
And he chose not to attack. I suppose you can copy the Reflection.
So no attack.
So this is going to force the Infernal Grasp potentially here from Shota.
All right, here comes Tenacious Underdog now from Shota. That'll get the card draw engine rolling for him. And hey, might as well send in as well.
All right, so David can make a bunch of creatures here. Right? So Shota has to go for the grasp here, right? Because this creature has haste. Yeah, so Shota has to go for the removal spell. Now the coast is clear for David Inglis. Now this Leer is not going to be quite as impressive as Shota does have the hearse. Ooh. But I mean, David now has access to a lot of mana here, and Shota does not have a removal spell for the Goldspan Dragon. In fact, you can copy the Goldspan Dragon for an additional treasure here if you want to. So this is going to be a huge, huge turn here for David.
All right, so big turn coming up here for David Inglis. He's resolved Goldspan Dragon. Shields are down for Shota. He just has access to 1 mana, but he doesn't have anything relevant in hand. And David gets to show off the passive power of Goldspan Dragon, not just the 4/4, not just generating treasures, but also pumping up your treasures, effectively doubling their mana output.
Yeah, and Shota only has access to 1 mana, so he can't have a removal spell here for the Goldspan Dragon. So we're going to see an attack for 8 with 2 treasures being generated.
This is huge here for David. Also, Behold the Multiverse was a nice draw. He's definitely in a position where he could use a little more action, and with Leer in hand plus Behold, he will not be short on that.
Yeah, I wonder, I'm curious, I don't recall seeing how he sideboarded in this matchup. I'm wondering if he just took out the Show of Confidences, because maybe there's some combination where you Behold the Multiverse into some Rummage effects, into Show of Confidence to just win this turn. Right.
I see. But you could tell he wasn't really considering that. So, yeah, I think I like what you came to as well, Paul, that he may have just taken them out. So, forcing the issue here with Leer didn't really get much done as far as spells go, right? Like, he does have access to those ones you can see, but, like, nothing's happening just yet. Oh, boy, there's a Riveteer's Charm, too.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Given that Shota's only removal spell, you cast it, David has the choice. If he sacks the Leer and copies Goldspan Dragon, we're looking at a lethal attack.
Well, he's going to put it on the
we've
top,
seen this before.
This is drawing cards rather than killing dragons.
And that's not going to get it done.
So David Inglis picks up game number 2, evens things up between our 2 players. Shota Yasooka, in deep pensive thought here, has to figure out what happened that game. He had some tools. He did mulligan, but it felt like he was vaguely in it, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. And he's going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board here.
Yeah.
A lot of his heavy hitters didn't show up. We saw Jenny Faye in hand as he lost the game, but he didn't have the setup for it. And he certainly wasn't in a position where that was going to be a card that can get him over the top. In the first game, you know, we saw some of his more expensive stuff, right? We saw like Ziatora, we saw Workchop War Chief as well. Both of those had a big impact on the game, but he didn't have stuff like that this time.
Yeah. And as you can see, David really is choosing to sideboard it. You see him bringing in those Behold and multiverses, knows that Shota Yasooka has 4 copies of Duress after sideboard, right? So can't really fall behind on cards.
Right.
And so looking to kind of play a longer game, you see the 2 copies of Show of Confidence there in his sideboard.
So he's off of that.
So is it control is what we're going for here, or is it dragons?
That's a strategy, right? Like we talked about that at the beginning of the match where I said, hey, you know, what other routes can he go to try to win? And you said, no, that's a thing. Like you can win with those cards.
Yeah, I mean, the combination of blue and red spells with Goldspan Dragon was good enough to win the World Championship. Still good enough to take down matches here at the Set Championship.
Yeah, and it's an easy transition here for David as well, right? I mean, he's just pulling a couple of cards. It's not like he has to dismantle the whole fundamental game plan that he's got.
Right. I mean, your deck is already filled with just a bunch of card draw spells, right? Because you're trying to find the combo. But now you're just replacing pieces of the combo with more interaction.
Right. Okay, final touches on the sideboard here for David Inglis. We're heading into game number 3 between these two players. And we'll see who's going to win. Hopefully no mulligans for anybody this time. There has been a fair bit between them, but these hands look pretty good.
Yeah, Shota's a little bit light on heavy hitters there, but you do have the 2-drop. And you do have an answer for a dragon, so...
His Tycoon, yeah. This card's been cool.
Yeah.
Taps to make a treasure, but if you hold your inventory in stock a little too long, you get punished for it.
Yeah.
Voltage Surge here from Inglis.
Yeah, David's going to want to get this off the battlefield. He does not want Shota to go make a treasure, play in Yasooka's Chariot here on turn 3.
That's right. There's also the Ginny Fae, I guess we'll call it the combo as well, where you can go land Ginny Fae, then use the Black Market Tycoon to start making creatures.
But David's hand is just fantastic, right?
Jeez, he's got
and I do want to talk about kind of the small innovation that this team kind of came up with this combo deck, right? They have the combo pieces, but they did recognize it's not a surprise because it is one of the most played cards in this event. But they added 4 copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker, right, into their deck. This not only is just a great card, but it also allows you to kind of transition and play that controlling / mid-range gameplay because you just get to put 4 generic copies of probably the best card in the format into your deck.
It's so great. Yeah, and it really does transition beautifully because, you know, when you're looking for combo pieces, getting ahead on mana and card selection are kind of what you want. But when you're going to play a longer game, Chapter 3 and making the reflection, that's a great way to end a game. And, you know, we actually saw that in the last game. Here's Duress now from Shota, who's kind of run out of gas. He's got double Black Market Tycoon. He's got a nice selection of things to pick with Duress, but...
I imagine David's just going to let it resolve as he has redundant copies here. Another big reason why this deck has kind of taken the next step into being one of the powerhouses in Standard is just redundancy, right? Before, you only had access to 4 copies of Windfall. Well, now you get 6, 7, up to 8 copies if you want of that effect. And, all right. So I imagine you're going to see David go for a Windfall before attacks here to see if he can find a Voltage Surge. Kill that Den of the Bugbear before you can make a 1/1 token.
Just going to get rid of Spikefield Hazard. Whoo, there's a Voltage Surge.
Boom. Well played, David.
But then he didn't fire it off straight away.
Fire it off. And now he's shaking his head. Oh, no.
Oh, he just must have not had a stop or something?
I guess so, yeah.
Because he did do that for that reason that you outlined, Paul.
And then the attack happened, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, okay, he's actually going to hold it in hand, so perhaps not. Or he changed his mind.
Took a lot of damage there, but...
He did.
You do have a Reflection of Kiki-Jiki to get in the way. You do have a Voltage Surge. And just running out of Leer here. And...
plenty of action.
Yep. And you know Shota's just going to start off immediately here, firing off the Grasp. And then we're going to see David Inglis here utilize that Voltage Surge in Graveyard. Although he might really be valuing the treasures that he hasn't played because, you know, what if he draws a dragon?
That's true. But his life total does feel like it's enough under threat that he needs to take advantage of the Leer while it's still here. Infernal Grasp is going to kill Leer, though, so those extra cards are going to go away. Voltage Surge and then a very, very important expressive iteration here for David Inglis is what's left. As well as the Hall of Storm Giants.
I mean, but Shota is just out of gas here, right? I mean,
he is.
David's going to use the Surge on the Den here. The Reflection can get in front of the Black Market Tycoon if he wants. And then he's just going to have to deal with this 1/1 that's in play when he's got a Hall of Storm Giants plus an iteration in hand.
Yeah, you got to like the position here for David. He's considering whether he wants to keep Reflection around for just the 2 damage. But no, he's going to trade off. Let's see what he can hit here. Ooh. Oh! Big score and expressive iteration. This is the setup.
Jeez.
And there's a Goldspan Dragon off of expressive iteration as well.
Yeah, so we're going to see Goldspan and iteration here. Just more value. Oh, goodness. And now we're going to get a 5-drop and then probably play the Jewelry Disruption here. And Shota's got a lot of things that he needs to fight through at this point. Needs a big draw.
Wow. It really does just avalanche for this blue-red deck. Like, they have one card draw spell. They play it, and now look. Big score, Lear, and Goldspan Dragon in hand here for David Inglis. I mean...
yeah, so
no looking
David
back
can go...
there.
Has a number of different options. If you go Goldspan Dragon, you can attack, and then that big score in his hand effectively becomes a mana-neutral spell. The other line would be to just run out the Lear and keep up that Voltage Surge that he has in Graveyard. But given that Shota has no cards in hand, it just seems so tempting to just run out the dragon and just kind of get that going.
Yeah, it really does, especially when you have big score. Like, you just really want to be able to leverage this stuff because...
Oh, probably keeping that one.
Wow, okay.
You can eat the treasure too.
That's Unleash the Inferno here for Shota Yasooka. And that is an answer for the dragon.
I wonder if he's going to wait here to see if David runs out the big score, and then you can respond.
You can do it in response, yeah. So now there's no lands available. Although, these decks don't play much in the way of counters, but still, the way is completely clear. And there we go. Unleash the Inferno. That will kill the treasure token as well as the dragon.
and you can float the mana if you draw a removal spell here. Oh, and
which he actually did.
There you go.
Nice play, David. Very nice.
And now remember, Shota, I mean, that was a good draw. Still needs to fight through a Lear with a loaded graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, watch this. For those of you people who like card draw at home, when this Lear hits the battlefield, you're going to see what it really looks like. Yeah,
we're going to see Lear into iteration, into removal spells. And...
Whoop!
And
come
check
on.
Out my hand. Check out my
this is like visually ridiculous, right? Like, come on.
Oh,
and there's another dragon. Who knew? Who could have possibly predicted this? And then a land here from David. This is a huge draw step. Oh, and it's a land off the top here for Shota. That was probably his last chance.
Yeah. I mean, now with two big scores windfall with Goldspan Dragon Lear without an answer, this should lock it up.
You just can't
David.
keep up, right? I mean, even if he drew a hard removal spell for Lear, then it's still Goldspan plus big score. Like, you're not getting out of that either.
Right.
Wow. David Inglis really putting on a show here and probably making Shota Yasooka pretty jealous. Normally it's Shota who's on this side, where once the dust is settled, he's the one with 100 cards in hand and kind of having his way with the game, but not this time. He just has to sit here and stare at a land, and he's had enough of it. And that is a win for David Inglis, perhaps taking yet another step towards that World Championship seat. He's got a long way to go,